Hi everybody. The last video was about Blaise Pascal's wager, and the wager thing was still on my mind when I came across a YouTube channel called the Atheist Experience. This channel is already running for 13 years or more, I think, so you could say that these guys are pretty experienced in them being atheistic and all. Before I continue, I need to say there is some wedding going on in town, and what do you know, right on the day that I want to record a video, the wind is blowing this direction, so you hear all the, maybe you hear the music, I'm not sure whether you can hear it, but they are making a big party out there. Anyway, I was talking about the Atheist Experience This channel. One of the faces of this channel is Mr. Matt Dillahunty, and please forgive me if I mispronounce his name. And somewhere in 2008, which is a long time ago already, they actually tackled the wager of Blaise Pascal. And I think it will be fun and educational to skip through this video and see whether Dillahunty has some good points or maybe not. I'm going to use this video not to destroy these guys, you know, like, oh, consider yourself destroyed. No. But I'm just going to see whether we as Christians can learn something here. And to learn something, you need to be prepared to get your feet dirty, right? So, let's go. I jump somewhere in the video after 30 seconds. They had a caller and he brought up the Pascal's wager. So let's see. This is new for me, so let's see how I'm gonna do this. All right, here we go. Yeah.
What you're actually quite a bit. What you're actually doing with that is making an appeal to Pascal's wager, which is basically saying that, you know, if the Christian is right, and by the way, I don't believe for a second that you're an atheist, but if the Christian is right,
or we're at the Richard Dawkins
then they get to go to heaven forever, and they, you know, they've lost nothing. But if we're right, nobody's lost anything because we're all dead.
Okay. So yes, Pascal wagers basically, he's right. Pascal wagers basically says that if the believer loses, he has lost nothing. But if the atheist loses, he ends up in misery. But now, Mr. Matt Dillahunty is switching very quickly to the idea that the wager directly talks about the Christian versus the atheist. And I'll grant him that Pascal might have had the Christian worldview in mind, but he never framed it like that. So let's continue.
And Pascal's wager fails on every single level. It's a false dichotomy. It ignores all the other possible religions. It ignores other heavens. It ignores other hells.
Let's stop right there. Okay, so now Dillahunty is saying, and with him most atheists, they say that this is actually a false dichotomy, a false dichotomy fallacy, and that means that you only get two options to choose from. So while there might be more options, Dillahunty backs his statement by naming possible religions with all their own, all these possible religions who have all their own. What am I doing with my English? So, back a little bit, he is basically naming possible religions who all have their own hells and heavens. And if you look at it this way, you might say that the bet isn't as simple as either you're for or against us. Now, we as Christians know, of course, that Jesus gave us this twofold idea. You're either for Jesus or you're against him. He says this in Matthew 12 verse 13. Let me read that for you. He that is not with me is against me, and he that gathereth not with me is scattereth abroad. So, what would happen if we changed the wager slightly and say either the supernatural world exists or not? And now that would include the possibility of other religions, wouldn't it? But now we have the guarantee of a nice outcome. Yeah, there is no guarantee of a nice outcome if such a supernatural world exists. This is because we all of a sudden need to know what would happen after death. You see, in Christianity, the outcome seems to be a bit more straightforward, at least for the Christian, right? John 14, verse 6, Jesus saith unto him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father. And then in John 20, he says, Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed. So this is actually why I prefer not to use the wager too quickly. And when I use it, I normally do this after I gave all the other arguments in favor of the biblical God. You see, you need to make sure that someone's thought process tells him that if the supernatural world exists, the God of the Bible must be the most logical explanation. You see, as soon as someone accepts the idea that the biblical God is the best explanation, then you might give him or her the wager. I wouldn't do it any sooner. So let's see what Mr. Matt says from now on. Let's see, where am I? Okay, here.
It makes the claim that worshiping, believing costs you nothing when that's not true. If this is the one and only life you have, then every minute that you've spent believing, worshiping, every dime that you've spent in deference to a God is wasted. So there's not a no-loss situation at all. And also,
oh, that's interesting. If the believer loses the bet, he loses nothing. And of course, Dillahunty corrects this statement. However, he tackles this in a in such a way I can't really agree on the way he's tackling it. You see, as a Christian, I would say that following Christ cost me my entire life. Jesus said that we have to give up our lives in order to follow him. Let me read to you Luke chapter 9, verse 23 to 25. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. For what is a man advantaged if he gain the whole world and lose himself, or be cast away? So, as far as that concerned, I do agree with Dillahunty, but yes, there is a big but. Dillahunty is referring to believing, worship, and spending money. He says that all those endeavors are wasted. He says he goes like this, emphasizing wasted if God doesn't exist. Now this is of course very silly, and I'm actually a little bit surprised that he uses these examples, because I think he should know better. I mean, he's a very clever guy. There are so many studies that actually point out that worshipping makes a person feel happier than his non-worshipping counterpart. But also, many Christians give money to good organizations. And let's see history. Christians built hospitals and played a huge role in abolishing slavery. And nowadays Christians are spending time and money in many countries where living conditions are really poor. Most Christians do that because they want to obey the Lord in loving their neighbor. And honestly, helping out in poor countries does come with a huge price. Mostly the people who go to these countries do not come back rich. And please, do not come after me with examples of those hypocrites who put all the money in their own pockets. No, actually the sincere Christians hate that just as much as you do. Anyway, I wouldn't see these altruistic actions as wasted. Mr. Dillahunty should be aware that only that he only has the freedom he enjoys because believers established these laws a long time ago, and they did it because they loved the Lord God as commanded in both the Old and the New Testament. And I will just quote Luke, the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, verse 22 for you. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. So you also might like to read an article I have written about this with the title "Why Mission Matters, Seen from a Secular Viewpoint." I will put the link to that article in the description of this video. Okay, let's move on.
And also, just because you happen to believe in one particular God doesn't mean you've avoided the hell of some other one. It's flawed start to finish, whether you use the Loch Ness Monster or Jeebus. It doesn't make any difference. And by the way, it all...
Okay, I think I've already gone through that, right? First try to show that the biblical God is the most logical explanation before you move on.
It also makes a couple of other presumptions. One, it presumes that belief is subject to the will, and that by determining that you're in a safe bet situation, you can go ahead and choose to believe as kind of like a covering your ass thing.
Covering your ass thing? Oh, I'm not allowed to say that. Well, this was rather predictable. I mean, many atheists say this. As I already said in the previous video, atheists like to treat belief, believing, as a talent. Some have the talent to believe while others do not, like the tennis players at Wimbledon. These people have a real talent to hit that ball while I can't even hit it 1 out of 10. I mean, I'm not talented like that. But I truly believe that we can't say this about believing in God. Now, I'm a bit lazy, so I'll just show you what I said in the last video. As said, Pascal wasn't very fond about the traditional form of apologetics. He knew full well that many unbelievers just don't want to believe in a higher being. Well, and this is what the Bible says, right? Let's go to Romans 1, verse 18 and till 20, which says, "The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godliness and wickedness of people, who suppress the truth by their wickedness," who suppress the truth. Yes? Kent Hovind once say, being dumb on purpose. I like that. Anyway, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For the invisible things of him from creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. So the idea is known in the philosophical world as doxastic voluntarism. And it says that people choose their own beliefs. People have a certain amount of control over what they believe. Pascal did not come up with this idea to enlighten the so-called intelligent people. No, he basically wanted to give a reason to believe without first having to dig through all sorts of arguments. He says, if you are unable to believe, it is because of your passions, since reason impels you to believe, and yet you cannot do so. Concentrate then on not on convincing yourself by multiplying proofs of God's existence, but by diminishing your passions. You want to find faith, and you do not know the road? You want to be cured of unbelief, and you ask for the remedy? Learn from those who were once bound, like you, and who now wager all they have. Okay, let's move on, shall we?
Which also makes the presumption that this God that you're believing in is silly enough that he'll buy into your covering your ass conclusion. Pascal's...
He's right. God isn't silly. He knows full well what's going on in the heart. Jeremiah 17, verse 9 and 10. The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? It is the Lord, the Lord, search the heart. And this is why the wager isn't meant to be the end station, but rather a starting point. How can you investigate something if you don't want to believe it in the first place, right? So you'll first have to start believing that the thing you are exploring is there to be explored.
Wager is one of the most ridiculous things. As a matter of fact, when anybody starts emailing to have a conversation with me outside of the show, the first thing I tell them is, I'll have any conversation, I'll consider any evidence you present for the existence of God, I'll have whatever discussion you want, using whatever definitions you want. But the second you bring up Pascal's wager, the conversation's over. And so goodbye.
Oh bother. No. Yes. I know that this man wants to debate all sorts of topics, and he's pretty good at it as well. Nevertheless, cutting the conversation because someone brings up the wager is, in my opinion, a bit weird. Up until now, he brought many objections against the wager, and some of which I agree on. Some are a bit off track, and some I would label as silly. But don't cut someone off like that. It can be seen as an offer of weakness. But even more, you can just tell people you're not going to answer, right? That's okay as well. Anyway, but here is a little thought buzzing through my mind. Can it be that atheists actually hate this argument because their conscience is nagging about it? I mean, again, I will quote the anecdote I used in the last video that came from Peter Kreeft. An atheist visited the great rabbi and philosopher Martin Buber and demanded that Buber prove the existence of God to him. Buber refused, and the atheist got up to leave in anger. As he left, Buber called after him, "But can you be sure there is no God?" The atheist wrote, 40 years later, "I am still an atheist, but Buber's question has haunted me every day of my life. The wager has just that hunting power." Well, that was fun, wasn't it? I mean, interesting to hear these arguments as given by Dillahunty. And throughout the years, these arguments seem not to have changed very much. Some arguments are valid, some are silly, some are just wrong. But, I mean, yeah. He did well. The trouble with programs like the Atheist Experience is, in my opinion, that the arguments follow up on each other in such a high pace that it becomes rather tedious to provide answers or even to respond to them all. You'll find that in everyday conversations, people are doing that as well. Someone starts with one question and you're not even halfway answering and they launch the next objection or question. And most of the time this means that the person you're talking to isn't really open to discuss the matter. Oh well. Anyway, this was just my take on the objections as given by many atheists, and I'm very curious about your ideas. Just let me know in the comments below. And remember, I'm mostly active on my Odyssey channel, and again you'll find the link to that channel in the description of this video. You see, Odyssey is a platform which is based on a protocol called Library, LBRY, and videos that are uploaded through the Library protocol are censorship free. In the same description you'll find ways to support me, and I'll place a link to the transcript of this video on my website, and I always try to make the transcript available in Dutch and English. If you want to start your own channel on Odyssey, you can use my invitation in the description, and we will both receive some free LBC. So as always, thank you for watching, God bless you, and we see each other in the next video. Thank you for watching this video. You can give me a thumbs up if you liked it. You can also subscribe to my channel, or even better, follow me on Odyssey. That way you will never miss a new video. You will find all the links in the description below.